The one exile that comes to mind when talking about this topic, probably Jorah Mormont. He does have the nickname of the Exile Knight after all. He was a lord of Bear Island in the north, but decided to disgrace himself by selling some poachers on his land to slavers. He had a difficult time pleasing his younger wife, who wasn't used to the rough conditions of the north. To impress her, Jorah was dumb enough to try and make a quick buck from slaving under the watchful eye of Ned Stark. Slavery is a huge taboo in Westeros, so the Honorable Ned intended to cut off Jorah's head. But Jorah had other plans. He and his wife ran off to Essos, where his liege lord's justice wouldn't reach him. Ned definitely would have let him join the Night's Watch, but he was way too infatuated with Lynese Hightower. Being a daughter of House Hightower, a very wealthy family from the Reach, she was accustomed to a lavish lifestyle. Jorah wanted to run away to Braavos, but she wanted better, and Lynese got what she wanted. They instead went to the free city of Lys, which was once a paradise island for the Valyrians. Even after selling his ship, they quickly ran out of money, so Jorah decided to become a sellsword. He's one of the most skilled fighters in the series. The only reason Jorah got Lynese Hightower to marry him was because he won a tourney, and with all the confidence that comes with this prestige, he asked her powerful father for her hand. He may have lost all respect for selling slaves, but he had the decency to leave his ancestral Valyrian steel sword at home. You know, the one that Jorah Mormont gives to Jon Snow.
It was my father's sword. His father before him. The Mormonts have carried it for 5 centuries. It was meant for my son, Jorah. He brought dishonor to our house, but he had the grace to leave the sword before he fled from Westeros.
It could have sold for a fortune that they could have lived off forever, but his conscience wouldn't allow it. Being a sword for hire is a common job in the free cities of Essos. The cities are constantly in war with one another, but don't like to sacrifice their own citizens for their battles. While Jorah was out fighting someone else's battle, his wife left him for a richer man. He lost his title of lord, his home, and now the woman he loved. This tragic fool doesn't learn, because next he would be obsessed with the young and attractive Daenerys. Jorah's story is a common one in the books. A character commits a crime, runs to Essos, then becomes a sellsword. Something similar happened to Oberyn Martell. He killed a powerful lord during a duel that was only supposed to be the first blood. Oberyn's exile was just temporary, to ease the tension within Dorne after what he did. While his time away from home, the young Oberyn joined a sellsword company called the Second Sons, one of the more prominent groups. He would go on and form his own company later on, though the name of it was never given. If you've ever read the short stories in this series, you probably remember Aerion Targaryen, also known as Brightflame. After all the trouble this insane character caused in the short story The Hedge Knight, his father sent him to Lys. He spent a few years here fighting with the Second Sons before returning home to Westeros. It seems like a lot of these highborns decide to become a sellsword, since one of the few skills they have is usually fighting. They are trained from a young age. The lifestyle of a sellsword isn't glamorous, but it is exciting, and it's a big step up from being poor. Their opponents likely didn't have castle training, so they would always have the advantage. Aerion Brightflame had one of the worst cases of Targaryen madness and killed himself drinking wildfire, believing it would turn him into a dragon. There's one other Targaryen who joined the Second Sons, well, a Targaryen bastard who was later legitimized by his father, Aegor Rivers, better known as Bittersteel. This man heavily affected the story's history. He was part of a rebellion to take the Iron Throne away from the Targaryens and give it to a branch family called House Blackfyre. After the first Blackfyre rebellion failed, the entire house along with Bittersteel ran off to Essos. He spent a year with the Second Sons before forming the Golden Company. He was such an impressive leader that the Golden Company quickly grew to the most respected sellsword company. Usually this line of work isn't reliable, but the Golden Company was the only one to never break a contract. He was always an angry and vengeful man, constantly trying to support another Blackfyre rebellion, even though the Targaryens were his siblings. While fighting with his company in Essos, he was mortally injured. His dying wish was to have his skull dipped in gold and to be carried when the Golden Company sailed to Westeros to take the Iron Throne. His death wish is actually coming true in the latest book. It's too bad the show cut this all out. Barristan Selmy's case is a little different, but still kind of similar. We see the way Joffrey and Cersei disrespectfully dismiss one of the best knights to ever live for their own personal reasons.
Even now I could cut through the 5 of you like carving a cake.
We see him storm off in Game of Thrones, but what they cut out is Joffrey ordering his arrest because the way he walked out threatened him. An unarmed Barristan was able to kill a couple of guards who were after him. He's one of the few honorable characters in this story and wanted a simpler, more honest death. He had no interest in sellsword companies. He just wanted to fight and die for a king he believed in. So like all the exiles before him, he sailed across the narrow sea to Essos. This king he sought would end up being a little girl, Daenerys. Daenerys and her older brother Viserys were actually saved by a man who exiled himself from Westeros long ago. A man named Willem Darry, who was the master at arms in King's Landing for the Targaryens. He smuggled the newborn Daenerys and young Viserys before Robert Baratheon's men could get their hands on them. He was actually the man who Rhaegar Targaryen went for training, so he's been around the family for a while. Towards the end of Robert's rebellion, the Mad King sent his pregnant sister wife, Rhaella, to Dragonstone with their young son Viserys in case King's Landing fell. Willem Darry went along with them to ensure their safety. While on Dragonstone, Rhaella would give birth to Daenerys, but die soon after from childbirth complications. It wouldn't be long before the Mad King was dead too, and the Targaryens were out of power. The garrison at Dragonstone had a difficult decision to make. The small island didn't stand a chance against the rest of the realm. Robert sent his brother Stannis to capture Dragonstone, so it wouldn't be long before he arrived. They planned on selling the young Targaryen children to Robert in hopes it would spare them from losing their heads. Willem Darry didn't give them the chance to have innocent children killed for the actions of their father. He took the children to Braavos, where he would live the rest of his life in a house with a red door that Dany remembers fondly. But by this point in his life, he was old and dying. He saved Viserys and Daenerys and treated them better than anyone ever has, but after a few years, they were on their own. During Robert's rebellion, another notable Targaryen ally would be exiled. Jon Connington wasn't in the show, but has become a major player in recent books. The Mad King named one of Rhaegar's friends to the position of Hand of the King, because this crazy character thought he needed someone young, strong, and a lord from the Stormlands to match Robert Baratheon. Aerys Targaryen II was an erratic man, so after Jon Connington failed to capture Robert after he was injured and alone, he exiled his short-lived hand. After Robert won the war, he didn't bother to call him out of exile. Instead, punished his house for siding with the Targaryens, even though he was their liege lord. House Connington are no longer lords, and 90% of their land was given to loyal followers. Jon followed the stereotypical exile route and became a sellsword. He decided to join the renowned Golden Company. In a short 5 years, he became the right-hand man of the Captain General. He was then approached by Illyrio and Varys, and they came with story-changing news. All of Westeros believed Rhaegar's infant son and heir, Aegon, was killed by the Mountain under Tywin's orders. Varys claims to have swapped babies and smuggled him to Essos to be raised. It's been hinted that Jon was actually in love with Rhaegar, so Varys must have known he would aid in their plot to one day name him king. But first, they had to make him disappear. They faked a story of him drinking himself to death so that no one would ever look for Jon. He took on the new name of Griff and called Rhaegar's alleged son young Griff. Who knows if Varys and Illyrio are telling the truth about this baby, but for the past 12 years, Jon has been raising the child as his own, but with some help. It isn't only people of high birth who escape the king's justice by running to Essos. A 16-year-old named Raleigh was the son of a blacksmith in the Reach. He had dreams of becoming a knight, and one day was skilled enough to be a part of a castle's garrison to his region's lord. While on his birthday, Raleigh's father gifted him with a sword impressive enough that his lord's spoiled son claimed it for himself, saying that Raleigh was more fit to wield a hammer. Raleigh found a hammer and then proceeded to break the rich kid's arms and ribs before running off to join the Golden Company. He was a blacksmith's apprentice at first, then was named to the Captain General's squire. Raleigh would be the man to help Jon Connington train Aegon in sword fighting. He was skilled enough for Jon Connington to knight him soon after, achieving his dream. He was knighted on a field with ducks around, so created his own last name of Duckfield. Not the most creative guy. Raleigh Duckfield is the first man named to Aegon's Kingsguard while they are attacking the Stormlands. The last exile I think I should talk about is Euron Greyjoy. He's one of the most malicious characters in this entire story, but what caused his exile was sleeping with one of his brother's wives. Victarion Greyjoy, his younger brother, would find out that not only did Euron sleep with his wife, but he impregnated her. The serious Victarion took all his anger out on his wife and killed her. Victarion would have also killed Euron if kinslaying wasn't a huge taboo in the Ironborn's culture. Their older brother and Lord of the Iron Islands, Balon Greyjoy, exiled him and told him to never set foot on his kingdom while he is alive. This actually all happened right before the start of the main series, 297 AC, literally the same year. Euron seems like he enjoyed his temporary exile. All the Ironborn do is reave and pillage other people's land, so he continued this tradition and pretty much became a pirate. He's always wearing an eye patch in the books, so he matches his theme. Euron's not the most trustworthy character, so it's hard to believe the stories that he tells about his travels during his exile, especially since he has his entire crew's tongues removed on a ship called the Silence. He claims to have been to the ruins of Valyria, which no one has returned from. For hundreds of years, people have tried to find treasure in the ruins of the greatest civilization that ever existed in the story, but all have gone missing. He said he found a dragon egg, but threw it overboard during one of his moods. He does still have a dragon horn in his possession that is supposed to be able to control dragons, making him a very powerful character in the books, so maybe he did make it to Valyria and back. He also claims to have been to Ashai, a location so far east that most of what you hear from this place is just rumors. He coincidentally returns home to the Iron Islands right after Balon's death, making it pretty obvious he had something to do with it. On his way back home, he picked up some warlocks from Karth, and they have made him far more interested in darker magic. With him now the ruler of the Iron Islands, his upcoming chapters are what I'm looking forward to the most. These guys are some of my favorite characters in all the series, so this was a fun one to make. But of course, there are some more exiles I didn't cover for time's sake. Hope you guys enjoyed this topic as much as I do. I'll see y'all later. Thanks for watching.